Alrighty, my name is Samantha Link and I will be doing my final project on fracking. Fracking, what goes in and what comes out. Alright, to start off, what is fracking? Fracking is basically combining two forms of technology, horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing. And this is horizontal drilling and this is hydraulic fracturing. Horizontal drilling is when you go down deep underground and then you turn sideways. And hydraulic fracturing is when you pump a lot of water, sand, and chemicals underground and then they fracture the rocks to let the oil and gas come out. The combination of the two has resulted in a boom of domestic oil and gas production over the past 5 years. The whole process, fracking, then is essentially drilling and injecting fluid into the ground at a high pressure in order to fracture shale rocks to then release the natural gas inside. And I will continue the whole process on the following slides. To start off with is you need land to fracture. The cost of fracking a well can cost between $3 to $5 million. Land needs to obviously be cleared and leveled, and each wellhead needs about 5 acres. And although a wellhead may sit on one property, the fracking may take place beneath the land of numerous properties. So the first step is driving. After we have land, we need to get the resources on the property. Each site requires on average 400 tanker trucks to carry water and supplies to and from the designated area. In these trucks, it takes anywhere from 1 to 8 million gallons of water to complete a fracturing job. With driving, obviously there comes more job opportunities. Fracking does indeed create additional industrial activity, with clearing land, building access roads, and new well sites, also trucking in heavy equipment and materials, and trucking out the vast amounts of toxic waste. Once we reach the site, the water brought in from the trucks is then mixed with sand and chemicals to create fracking fluid, which is a term they created, fracking fluid. About 40,000 gallons of chemicals are used per fracking, which is a lot. This fracking fluid they create, in those 40,000 gallons of chemicals, up to 600 chemicals are used. Many are carcinogens and toxins. And on your right is a list of some of the more popular ones that they use, and also the more well-known that they use. There are also chemical additives, and there's already these main chemicals, and they put more chemicals in to help these chemicals. So there's just a ton of additives, and some of the chemicals used are even known to cause cancer. Now that we have the fluid, we're ready to travel into the ground. Bringing horizontal drilling into play, the fluid is pressure injected into the ground and travels down 10,000 feet through a drilled pipeline. So we just brought all this fluid in using the trucking, and now we're going to drill it down into the ground, and it's going down. Once the fluid hits shale, this mixture then reaches the end of the well, where the high pressure causes shale rock to crack. This creates fissures where natural gas can then flow into the well. So this part right here that you see down here, this is it coming. It just traveled down here and now it's turning, so it's horizontal drilling, and now it's hitting these shale rocks, and then this natural gas is now coming into the well. It's being allowed into the well. Another scary part of fracking is if it is done along a fault, it can cause small earthquakes and earthquakes, even small ones, could harm property. Now with this going in, we have the concern of water contamination. Methane gas and toxic chemicals breach from the system and contaminate nearby groundwater. Next to areas of gas drilling, there have been over 1,000 documented cases of water contamination, which also includes sensory, respiratory, and neurological damage due to this contaminated water. In September 2009, 3 spills of fluid totaling more than 8,000 gallons of polluted local wetlands and a creek, causing a fish kill it's called Dimbach Township in Pennsylvania. So 8,000 gallons of this polluted these wetlands and killed a bunch of fish. It was very bad. So with it contaminating our water, there's also the concern of the leftovers. What happens to the rest of the fracking fluid? 30 to 50% of the fracking fluid is left over, which is, 30% the minimum, and then 50% is almost half of that fluid is left over. The rest is toxic and left in the ground. It is also not biodegradable. Waste fluid releases harmful VOCs, volatile organic compounds, which is left in open air pits to evaporate into the atmosphere. Since most of the wells fracking, they do not really have a treatment process, so the water that's contaminated with all this sand and the chemicals added is essentially destroyed. It is basically, this fracking fluid is basically injected deep into the ground, and it will hopefully not come back up into our water systems. So that's definitely a heavy thing to carry on our shoulders. Now talking about those VOCs. VOCs create contaminated air, acid rain, and ground level ozone. So pretty much the only treatment we have is to put it into the open air pits. And those open air pits create these horrible situations we have to deal with. Fracking could be contributing to global warming at rates equaling or even surpassing coal. Basically, fracking is a choice. Fracking produces 300,000 barrels of natural gas a day, which is great. We can burn that for energy. But when you do the math, we have 500,000 active gas wells in the U.S. Alright, and we use 8 million gallons of water per fracking, while each well can only be fracked 18 times. This means 72 trillion gallons of water and 360 billion gallons of chemicals are needed to run our current gas wells. These are pretty scary numbers. It's awesome that we produce that many barrels of natural gas, but then there's the downside that each well can only be used 18 times, which does not seem like a whole lot, and how many gallons of chemicals and gallons of water we waste putting down into the wells. Over 250 communities in the U.S. have passed resolutions to stop fracking, and even Vermont, France, and Bulgaria have stopped it. They've completely stopped it. Fracking to me seems like there are more risks than rewards. I would not want to live by a fracking well, and I feel bad for those who do. Here I have some fracking slogans, and some of them are pretty clever. In New York, fracking is a very big deal. One says, "Stop fracking with our water." And then the middle one in the top also is a New York poster. It's a rally. They're against fracking. The top right actually shows a woman lighting her faucet on fire with all the chemicals going into her water. There's a clever one on the bottom left, and it says fracking is for gas holes. And that is my presentation. I do have a works cited. I had 11 sources, and if you would like me to attach them on a Word document and email them to you, I can do that. Thank you for this wonderful class experience.